Wow, is this watch a good looking watch, and wow, am I so impressed with it. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. Well, normally when I buy watches, I put a lot of time and energy and effort into choosing the right ones. I don't want to waste my money. I want to buy something that I love. I want to buy something that I'm going to wear, and I'm going to buy something that I enjoy. So when it comes to looking at watches and making the decision to press that buy it now button, I put that time and energy in. Well, most of the time. This particular watch that I'm going to show you today, the Ipose 5303, I put more time in than I probably have almost any other watch. And that's because this watch is a homage. And unlike other homage watches that I've bought, the watch that it is homaging is actually priced at a point that I could probably afford, that I could justify, and that I could actually get my hands on. But there's some issues with that watch that stop me wanting to buy it. And I'm going to produce a particular video specifically about this Ipose versus the watch that is homaging, and that'll come out over the next few days or next couple of weeks. And I'm going to go through why I chose this one over the watch that it is homaging. But I think I've made the right choice. And if you want to buy one of these watches as well, I'm going to leave one of those affiliate links down in the description of the video. But let's flip the camera around. Let's do a first impressions of my Ipose 5303.
So my Ipose 5303, I have to say there's 5 things that stood out to me. But before those things stood out to me, what surprised me most is it comes with a screwdriver. I don't think it actually needs a screwdriver. And the warranty card is on this sort of interesting sort of coaster thing. So that's something a little bit different. And not something that stood out to me, but something that still really sort of impressed me somewhat is the packaging. It's a little bit smaller than I expected. It actually fits within my hand. But it's really, really well made and very nice to sort of protect that watch, and comes on a proper sort of watch cushion too. So that's really good for that sort of travel through to you. But inside, obviously, we're getting a watch which looks amazing. And that's probably one of the things that stood out to me first. The first thing is just the overall looks of this watch. There's something rather special about this one. And then to get more specific, the second thing that stood out to me is that dial. I really like the design of this dial. I think it's really cool. It's something fairly simple, just these lines with dots with the lume. But it looks great. And I chose to go to this variation as well, this wide dial with the black hands. And I think that looks really, really cool. And I guess that's probably the next thing that stood out to me is the contrast between these really black hands and this sort of dial here. Really good for legibility, but I think it also just looks really cool. Next thing that stood out to me is these end links, how they sort of integrate into the case itself. Really cool. Really nice mesh quality as well, but just, it really sort of adds to the looks of this watch. Really gives it some interesting look to it. The last thing that stood out to me was when I sort of paid a little bit more attention to the dial, and I thought, well, that's not quite white, it's not quite silver, it's almost a slight pearl, or at least it's sort of a mix between those 3 things. A bit of a white, pearl, silver, tiny little bit of texture as well. But I'm really glad because it really gives it something a little bit extra special, especially when you're looking in sort of real light or real sunlight as well. It really stands out to me. Now, apart from those 5 things, I just think it's a really good looking watch. In fact, it's probably one of the better looking watches I've seen in such a long time, and I was so excited about this one over a long period of time. I chose to spend a little bit extra money, and I got this one with the Salida SW200 movement. So at least I've now got a Swiss movement inside a really good looking watch. Overall, the polishing is really good as well. We've got these nice polished edges here, these chamfered edges, brushing, good polishing. I think it looks really nice. It feels nice in hand, looks nice and slim as well. Those lugs are just super, super cool. And the mesh, the quality of the mesh is fantastic. I'm really impressed by that. Really nice bezel action too. Has a really nice muted sort of clicking. Reminds me a little bit of the sort of Seiko action, and I like the Seiko sort of action. And I think it pretty much lines up. I think it's very slightly out, but only so little amount that it doesn't bother me whatsoever. On the back of the watch, we've got a bit of information, nothing too specifically interesting, but you can see the back of those lugs as well. So you can see they're solid end links. They're sort of screwed onto them. You're not really going to be removing those at any point. And you'll see all these sort of little indentations into the back of the strap there. Those allow you to sort of lock it in with that little bit there. So you've got a whole heap of adjustment on this bracelet. Yeah, it's one of those ones when you put it on, you need to be a bit careful because as you put it on, you sort of need to turn it over and you could easily drop the watch. You just got to pay a little bit of attention when you're putting it on. I have found putting it on and off occasionally, I sort of seem to find somewhere in the middle there, but you can notice that the little safety catch doesn't lock down. So you just sort of move it a little bit and then it locks in. And when it does lock in, it looks awesome on wrist. I'm really, really liking this watch, both the looks, the dimensions, and just how that integrates. And there's actually a fair bit of taper there on that mesh as well, which is quite interesting. You'll see the links of the mesh are sort of bigger there, and they get a little bit smaller down the bottom. So it's not as obvious when you're looking at photos, but there's actually a bit of a taper there, which is actually quite nice. Nice little logo there on the clasp too. I just really like the look of it, and it feels nice and it feels good quality as well, which I'm glad because I spent a little bit of money on this one. Really cool. I do also like how the crown has an almost vintage sort of size to it. It's a little bit thinner. I think it really suits the style of this watch, and nice and easy to use as well. And being a Sellita SW200, firstly I know it's going to be good quality, but it has hacking and hand winding, and it's high beat as well. And guys, if you enjoyed this first impressions style video of this watch, maybe you'll enjoy these two first impressions as well.